This seems pretty obvious, but the following video will contain scenes and spoilers about Telltale Games' The Walking Dead. You've been warned. When it comes to Telltale's The Walking Dead, everything is a choice.
No! We're leaving! All of us! Together!
In every separate game in the franchise, the narrative heavily relies on the player to make their own choice and dialogue from a set of options to carry on the story that's being told. From providing Clementine with some crucial words of wisdom, deciding whether or not Conrad survives the entirety of A New Frontier, or even helping Clementine get a girlfriend or boyfriend, or simply keep her opposed to finding love in this universe, Telltale offers the player a variety of dialogue options and choices that gives them the freedom to build their own story for Clementine, and others, so to speak. However, while Telltale wants you to think that your choices play a big role, this technically isn't always the case. Sure, whenever you play through the game for the first time, every decision you do make does seem to be building towards your own unique story, but after looking at the consequences that alternative decisions will have, you begin to realise that this idea of building your own adventure isn't actually the case. While The Walking Dead has its obvious flaws, I can't help but love every season in the series. Out of every game I've ever played, no franchise has ever affected me as much as Telltale's, and the first two seasons are some of my favourite games of all time, along with the likes of The Last of Us and GTA 5. Okay, apologies for the rambling, we'll get right back on course. So Telltale Games announced The Walking Dead the final season last year at Comic-Con in San Diego, and was revealed to be the season to conclude Clementine's arc in the Walking Dead universe. However, as of this recording, we're currently halfway through the season, but due to certain circumstances, it's unknown whether or not fans will actually be able to complete Clem's story in the final two episodes. On the 21st of September, Telltale's CEO, Pete Hawley, announced that Telltale was undergoing a majority studio closure, and that around 90% of its present employees, believed to be around 250, were let go that day. These staff members were reportedly not given any warning about the decision, would receive no severance, and only had a limited amount of time left on healthcare benefits. As expected, the news sent outrage across the entire internet as well as key figures in the gaming industry. While Telltale were undergoing many projects such as The Wolf Among Us Season 2, Stranger Things, and also the completion of The Walking Dead the final season, it was originally hinted across many news outlets that all of these projects had been cancelled due to the studio closure, and that the remaining staff members are working on the Minecraft Story Mode series for Netflix. However, it's important to note that there hasn't been any official confirmation yet. While the future of The Walking Dead the final season doesn't exactly look great, there's still some light at the end of the tunnel. In their last official public message, it has been revealed by Telltale that multiple partners have stepped forward to express interest in helping to see the final season through to completion. The first two episodes of the final season have been excellent, and I hope Telltale can find some sort of solution to release the last two episodes of this phenomenal franchise. When looking at the quality that the first two episodes have, it's still very unclear as to how Clementine's story will reach its demise. Throughout this season, there have been many hints that Clementine will soon be knocking on death's door. For example, there was a time in which Lewis sang "Oh My Darling Clementine" to Clementine, Lily told Clem that she'll make the same mistakes with AJ that Lee did with her, and also the mini bombshell that Clementine herself dropped on AJ in one of the teasers for the final season.
What do you do if I get bit?
In addition, when looking at the leaked achievements for the last two episodes, the future doesn't exactly look bright for Clem and Co. In episode 3, the trophies Mercy, Personal Space, and Tally stand out to me. Mercy could be in reference to James's reluctance to kill walkers or the actions taken towards Abel to find out more information about Delta. Personal Space could be a decision-based trophy towards the person you allow to be captured, and Tally, well, Tally just doesn't really sound right if I'm being honest. Look towards the episode 4 achievements and everything looks that much worse. Final Lesson and Savior are used to describe acts 2 and 3, which definitely hints at some emotional scenes on the horizon. Lee's final lesson was teaching Clementine how to say goodbye, and this can now be the case for Clem towards AJ. Goodbye sounds like a potential best friend or love interest, depending on what choice you made, won't be around for that much longer, and the other trophies Promise, Goodbye, and You and Me just sound like big warnings that you'll need to be prepared for a lot of tears. Lost and Found instantly reminds me of the time in which Lee was bitten back in Season 1, and Survivor seems like we'll be able to honour certain characters' deaths by retrieving a special item of this. When it comes to the ending, it does seem like a lot of people have very similar ideas towards how Telltale will conclude Clementine's story. After spending hours on YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit, I've seen a significant majority of people make their own theories towards how Clementine's story will end. Yet each of these theories seems very similar to one another in some capacity, but also doesn't offer a lot of depth to them.
Blaming me for stuff.
Like what?
Putting a bug on his pillow?
Did you do that?
Yes.
For example, I've seen some people speculate that the final choice will see Clementine choose to sacrifice herself to save AJ or to let him die. Other people predict that both AJ and Clem will die this season, or that the game will end with both of them surviving. Now, while all of these different options does seem plausible, it doesn't seem like the type of path that Telltale would want to take when ending this series. That isn't to say that any of these events will not happen, but I feel like there will be a lot more depth added to the ending to remove the possibility of a lot of unanswered questions.
How do you know? Maybe I have magic and never told you.
Let me explain. In order for Clementine and everyone else's story to truly end, it only seems right that the game concludes without the need for many unanswered questions. For example, if the game were to end with your Clementine sacrificing herself to save AJ, and then the screen simply just fades to the credits, there would be many questions towards AJ's fate. How long would he survive for? How would he cope with Clementine's death? Would there be any remaining students at Erickson? Unless Telltale have something unusual up their sleeves, there's only two paths they can realistically take to conclude this franchise and prevent an abundance of unanswered questions. First, they can quite easily have every known character die in the last two episodes, or more interestingly, have certain characters outlive the zombie era, so to speak. Given the information we currently know, I think Telltale have already dropped two subtle hints regarding the paths they are taking to end this franchise, and 10 plays a crucial role in this. When it comes to Telltale's The Walking Dead, essentially everything that you see is there to serve some sort of purpose. Sometimes you'll find Easter eggs, other times there'll be some sort of clever foreshadowing, and also occasions in which Telltale just likes to trick their players. When it comes to the sweet and innocent 10, it's quick to realise that he's not like any other member of the Erickson group. He's one of the only members who seemingly hates violence, always remembers what life was like before the apocalypse, and he even forgives Marlon for abandoning his own sisters. However, out of everything 10 has said and done in these first two episodes, I think his words of wisdom, so to speak, towards the end of each episode, spark discreet hints about what could possibly be in store for Clementine's concluding story. In episode 1, 10 can be seen drawing a picture of a vision he has of an afterlife that includes people that have died in the past, such as Walker and his sister. As the conversation progresses, he reveals he doesn't fear death because he knows there's something better in store for him after he and everyone else dies. They'll go somewhere new, like heaven, where everyone gets to be human again. In episode 2, during the Truth or Dare game, 10 offers the group another belief of his that he has, that sooner or later the zombie era will come to an end, just like other times like the Stone Age and the Ice Age. Now, while some have took notice of 10's afterlife theory and what it can mean for Clementine, AJ and others, there's barely been any discussion amongst fans about 10's other theory regarding the end of the apocalypse. Unless this is Telltale's way of trying to trick fans, these two 10 scenes have been developed excellently, and it looks as if Telltale wants you to be paying more attention to them. Be nice to 10 and let him draw Clementine in his drawing and he'll reward you with his work. Unsurprisingly, you have to do this in order to earn 2 trophies in the first episode. Pay closer attention to the Truth or Dare game and you'll realise that 10's mini speech part is the only occasion in which Clementine plays no part of the game. Every other round she either draws the highest or lowest card. It's unlikely that these two scenes are just dead to develop 10's character. If anything, it seems like Telltale are using these theories to pave the way for the finale of the game. Remember what I said about Telltale having 2 paths to end Clementine's story without an abundance of unanswered questions? Well, 10's theories support what I previously said about how this franchise could end. Essentially, everyone dies and the game concludes with Clem and AJ meeting everyone once again in some sort of afterlife or dream sequence, or more interestingly, yet also unlikely I guess, we see certain characters technically survive the majority of the apocalypse. The first half to this theory seems self-explanatory. With a potential war of the Delta as well as an unnamed group on the horizon, it seems very likely that quite a few members of the group will be killed in this eventual revenge battle. For the record, if the final 2 episodes are released, then I have a strong feeling that 10 will be killed in the next episode. If Telltale does decide to conclude Clementine and AJ's story through death, then an afterlife sequence would be an emotional and perhaps even beautiful way to conclude this franchise. Such a scene would allow for AJ to finally meet his parents, and Clementine could once again see the likes of Luke, Kenny, and of course Lee. Now, if I'm being honest, I already know what you're thinking. The second half to this theory probably doesn't even make a lot of sense. Robert Kirkman himself has reiterated many times in the past that he does not want any form of cure to exist in this universe. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible for the last remaining survivors in this world to technically outlive the zombie universe. If the changing graphics and details is anything to go by, then I think you could make a claim that zombies are on a slow drive to extinction. The decomposition process within the body generally takes place across 5 stages. The first stage, initial decay, takes place within the first 3 days of a person's death. This is where the skin slowly turns grey and the eyes begin to sink into the skull. The bloating or putrefaction stage occurs between days 4 and 10, where discoloration of the body spreads and parts of the body like the abdomen begins to swell. Following this is the active decay or black putrefaction process, which roughly takes between 10 and 20 days post-mortem. It's during this third stage where gases begin to release from the body or the skin begins to turn black. Advanced decay or butyric fermentation sees the remaining parts of the body dry out and takes place approximately 20 to 50 days following death. The final stage, dry decay, can take any time between days 50 and days 350 post-mortem and just leave the body in a bundle of bones. When looking at the more detailed zombies in this universe, you can argue that as each season of the game passes, the zombies are decomposing more and more, but also at a very slow rate. Look at some of the important walkers from Season 1 like Clementine's parents, Chet, and even the walkers from Lee's final stand, and it's easy to realise that they're still at the early stages of decomposition. While there are some instances of walkers looking like they're in the black putrefaction stage in Seasons 1 and 2, it's in Season 3 where a lot of walkers look much worse in comparison to the previous seasons. Finally, if you look at walkers we see in the final season, it's likely that these walkers are entering the dry decay stage. Any remaining skin is decomposing and bones are clearly visible, like in the ribcage. Similarly with the TV show, the developers have also inserted hints about this ongoing decay that is taking place in the zombies with the slow decay of the game's title screen. As each season passes, the title screen gets worse and worse to a point where some letters barely become visible. This could just be some sort of Easter egg or a nice little reference to the show itself, but it does seem pretty interesting that as the screen decays, so do the zombies. As we know from Kirkman himself, the overall population for humans at one point in this universe was believed to be around 1.6 million, and that the walkers outnumbered humans by approximately 5,000 to 1. Judging by estimates from the worldwide population at the time, this would mean that around 6.3 billion people have been killed since the zombie outbreak began. When it comes to the zombies in this universe, it's obvious that they do not compose at the same rate as a normal human, otherwise the overall threat of zombies would have ceased to exist years ago. Nonetheless, given the fact that we can now see some walkers enter the final stages of decomposition, it could be some subtle foreshadowing by the developers that the threat posed by the zombies will significantly reduce sooner or later. Given how confusing the Walking Dead timeline is, it's hard to definitively predict just how far into the apocalypse the current season is and how much longer it will be before a majority of the zombies in this universe dies through the decomposition stages. According to both the Walking Dead Wiki and my own research, the outbreak began on approximately the 18th of July 2003, although Robert Kirkman has said otherwise. Season 1 approximately takes place between days 0 and days 105 to 106. All of the events of Season 2 took place from days 356 to days 867 to 869. The flashbacks and the events of A New Frontier takes place anytime between day 867 and day 1324, and the most recent season takes place anytime between the days of 2558 to 2580, or to the days 2785 to 2807. This probably doesn't mean much, but if the aforementioned timeline is in fact reliable, and also that the zombies in A New Frontier have been designed to resemble the end of the black putrefaction stage, it would roughly mean that your average zombie in this universe would at a very minimum take 3,310 days to fully decompose. That's equivalent to just over 9 years. Here's the math that I used just in case it didn't make any sense to you. I just really hope that this actually does make sense. Looking back to the timeline, if there's any truth to this timeline theory, even if this counts as a theory, then it would mean that Clementine and Co would only have to wait it out for around 1 to 2 more years. With Erickson only having 3 major interactions since the outbreak began, this boarding school could actually be the safe haven that's needed to outlive one of the biggest threats in this world, zombies. If I'm being honest, I just hope that these last few minutes actually mean something for the story and I haven't been unnecessarily rambling on about pointless and incorrect information. For pretty obvious reasons, I realistically don't see Clementine's story ending this way, and I don't think Kirkman would allow for this either, since this would restrict his comic book series. But still, if there is some credibility to my two-pass theory, you can't deny the fact that it's interesting to note just how close the likes of Clementine and AJ are to outliving a majority of the zombie threats. Considering the fact that most zombie-related stories typically end with a cure being found or everyone dying, it would be really interesting to see how Telltale would treat the end of the apocalypse, so to speak. Obviously, it's impossible for zombies in this universe to go extinct since everyone is infected, but as I previously mentioned, the overall threat of the zombies will significantly decrease as years go by as more and more fully decompose. Clementine has always been portrayed as a character who can't die, and I personally would love to see her survive until the very end as the leader of Erickson. I feel like the ending would be a lot more dynamic and would make a character stand out that much more. Also, before I conclude this discussion and theory video, I also wanted to point out that I think the type of person that your Clementine becomes will also play some part in the finale. In the story builder for the final season, Telltale broke down Clementine's character based on previous decisive choices into 4 key categories: loyal, brutal, selfless, and righteous. The 2 main choices that established these 4 different personality traits were whether or not you decided to kill Kenny in the season 2 finale, and whether or not you decided to fight for AJ as he was taken in A New Frontier. When looking at some of the crucial decisions you've had to make this season, it seems that these can further establish Clementine's character down one of the 4 paths, and also play an important role in the type of person that AJ becomes. For example, pushing Abel into the walkers in episode 1 could be seen as Clementine being brutal or loyal, while surrendering food to him would make Clem selfless or righteous. Also, telling AJ to sleep in his bed could be seen as loyal or righteous, while allowing him to sleep on the floor could be seen as brutal or selfless. If I'm being honest, I just really hope Telltale and Skybound can find some sort of solution to bring the last 2 episodes to life while also offering better support to the employees who lost their jobs. The Walking Dead is a franchise that deserves an ending, and Clementine is such an inspirational and iconic character in the gaming industry who deserves to see her legendary story come to an end.
It's called a salt lick.
Yeah, but don't lick it. It's gross.
Did you lick it?
I don't know.
If a solution can be found, I'll be excited to see if there really is any substance to my two-parts theory, or if it's just something ludicrous that I thought of. But now it's over to you. What do you think of the video of my theory? If we're able to get the last 2 episodes, how do you want Clementine's story to end? Or do you have a theory of your own? But anyways, thanks for stopping by, and have a good day.